Welcome back, friends, to our next installment of Adventures in Homeschooling, Faraway Places at Your Fingertips. Today we are visiting the Republic of the Philippines, and I can't wait to share with you what I've learned. Before we get started, if you came in and picked up your bingo cards, you can get them ready now. Listen carefully because you will hear a word on your paper and you can mark that square and you can see who the first in your family is to win the bingo game. All right, I'm getting ready to go to our map. This is our trusty map that we use every single month. We have our continents: North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and Oceania, and right here at the end of this red arrow is the Philippines. All right, friends. So if we live right here in the greater Chicagoland area, right at the bottom of Lake Michigan, we could travel east. We would probably stop somewhere in Europe before we got to the Philippines, or we could travel west across the Pacific Ocean and go straight there. Or you could do the real fun way, go east to get there, and then come east to go home, so you travel the whole world. That might be kind of fun. Now, a closer look at the Philippines will show you that there are 7,641 islands. If you shoved them all together, they would be about the size of Ecuador, the country of Ecuador, or the state of Arizona, but they're spread out a little bit. Most of the people live on 11 main islands, the largest being Luzon and Mindanao. So we see that it's in the Pacific Ocean, but we're going to call this area the Philippine Sea, and this the South China Sea. So moving on, we are going to learn a little bit about the Philippines. So our flag here has the stars in the flag symbolizes the three main geographical areas: Mindanao, Luzon, and Visayas. The sun's 8 rays represent the provinces similar to our states, and the blue stands for peace and justice, and the red for courage. The white triangle symbolizes liberty, equality, and fraternity. We have the money, which is the Philippine peso, and here is the current president, Rodrigo Duterte, and Leni Robredo. The president and vice president are voted on separately. They're not voted on together. They get 1 6-year term each. They cannot go again. They don't get a second chance. But they're voted on separately. They're not a team. The capital is Manila. Here is some of the Capitol buildings. And because they're a republic and people vote on the president and the vice president, they also have 3 branches of government, just like we do: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. So some things might look similar to us, and some things might be different. Often, we have discovered in almost every country the voting age is 18, and they expect you to vote. All right, now moving on to the languages. There are 70 languages spoken in the Philippines, but almost everyone understands Tagalog and English, which are the 2 official languages. Since we already know English pretty well, we're going to try to say it in Tagalog. Are you ready? I want to hear you loud and clear, friends. Hello is "Cómo está?" "Cómo está?" Goodbye is "Paalam." Let me hear you. Paalam. Please, and don't forget to wind that just a little bit. Pakisuya. Pakisuya. And thank you is "Salamat." Yes is "Oo" for the casual, but they are very respectful to their elders and their parents, their grandparents, and older people in their community. So the respectful way, or if you're saying yes to someone, an authority, you're going to say "Opo" instead of "Oo." So "Oo" for your friends, "Opo" for respectful adults. And then remember, "no" is no in almost every language, but in Tagalog, we're going to say "Hindi." Hindi for no. So O-O or Opo, and Hindi for yes and no. All right, friends, here's a few fun facts. Back to that flag we were looking at. The Philippines is the only country in the world to fly their flag upside down when they are at war with another nation. Something fun is our little tarsier monkey here. He's only about 6 inches long. That's about half the size of a ruler that you might have at home, but he has those great big eyes. Now, you don't have to be afraid, never fear. He just pretty much eats insects, so you don't have to worry about him biting you or anything like that. In the Philippines, a bathroom is called a comfort room. They might even say CR for short. And Philippine immigrants to the United States manufactured the first yo-yo. You're going to hear a lot about volcanoes coming up in our slideshow. Mount Pinatubo erupted in 1991, spewing volcanic ash 50 miles away and more. Their national bird is an eagle. We'll see that coming up soon. And the country, the Philippines, came from King Philip II of Spain. Now, a little step through time. In the early days, people came over from Asia, and they settled small communities. But they didn't come together as a big country and develop any sort of leadership. So in 1521, when Ferdinand Magellan landed, he claimed the land for Spain. Now, he was killed by a native ruler, but in the meantime, because they didn't have a large community already put together, the Spanish in 1565 took over, and it became part of the Spanish Empire. 400 plus years later, or 300 plus years later, in 1899, the Philippine and American War began. Spain had turned the Philippines over to the United States, but the Philippines really wanted to be their own country. Now, we all know that when World War II took place, lots of things changed in the world. So in 1941, Japan invaded and occupied the Philippines. And that was a really, really rough time. But in 1946, when the Americans and Filipinos regained control of the land, the Filipinos also gained their independence and were renamed the Republic of the Philippines. Later on in 1965, Ferdinand Marcos became president. He invoked martial law. But then later on in 1986, the People's Power revolted. Corazon Aquino took control, and it became more democratic. In 1986, when that took place, there were 4 days of peaceful protest that could have turned really ugly, was tanks rolled down the street, and things got really, really serious. Thankfully, soldiers could not fire on their own countrymen. Nuns presented soldiers with flowers, and all became peaceful. Now, the word archipelago means lots of islands. Archipelago is a word that if you grew up in the Philippines, you had to learn this word. There were lots of little islands, and you can see, and then a few big ones. Now, there are actually 5,000 unnamed islands. Let's take a look at this. Of the 7,000 plus islands, you see some names, Palawan, Luan, but then all of these other ones you see nameless, 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 nameless. That is just too many islands to name. And look at this island, it's called Hen and Chickens. What? Hen and Chickens, actually that's 2 islands, but that's pretty hilarious. So, we have some of them named, some of them unnamed, but this is all the Philippines. Now, on the islands, you have terrace-type farming, you have small mountains, you have white beaches, and then the ever so cool pink beaches. Now the beaches are pink because of a special kind of coral, and that there's only a few pink beaches all over the world. So this is something very, very special. Now the terrace farming, this happens to be rice. And these little mountains, I put this picture here because these are called the chocolate mountains. And they do look a lot like chocolate, don't they? Almost good enough to eat, but they're not. They're really just mountains. And the beautiful beaches for people to enjoy a casual time. Another big word that we're going to talk about today is endemic and endangered. Endemic means that because there isn't a lot of intermingling of different animals, they are specific animals to their locations. So these can mainly only be found in the Philippines. Now the Philippine eagle is their national symbol. He's a monkey-eating eagle. Yikes, monkeys look out. That tarsier monkey better be very careful. Keep those great big eyes looking out for this eagle because he is huge. He stands 3.3 feet tall. His wingspan is over 7 feet wide. Crazy. He is just a beautiful sight though. We have the Philippine mouse deer, the Visayan warty pig, the Philippine flame lemur, the tamaraw, and the crocodile. Now those are on land, but by sea, because it's a bunch of islands, we have a lot of coral coast. And on some of our sea endemic animals might be the flying gurnard, the pygmy seahorse, I think he is adorable, the bamboo shark, the Titan triggerfish, the frogfish, look at this guy right here, he's pretty fun, and then the blue-ringed octopus. Don't be fooled, he is very, very dangerous. Do not get too close to this guy. He's beautiful to look at, but you do not want to be close by him. All right, now we also know of the Philippines is the land that shakes. Now, in the tectonic plates, there are 3 tectonic plates that come together near the Philippines. And so lots of things happen, but also they're at a very precarious part in the Pacific Ocean where they're going to get some weather too. So we're going to talk about typhoons, earthquakes, and volcanoes. First, typhoons. Typhoons are a hurricane that happens in the Pacific Ocean. We call hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean, typhoons in the Pacific Ocean. But you can see this is a wind and storm. It's very quiet in the eye of the storm, but this part of the storm can get very, very serious. Winds up to 100 plus miles an hour. They cause lots of beach damage. And then here are some pictures of some damage caused by typhoons in the Philippines. Earthquakes also do quite a bit of damage. There are 9 to 8 earthquakes per day in the Philippines. Most of them are too small to measure or be felt. But 9 to 18 a day, up to 3 a year might cause some damage. The ones that cause this kind of damage don't happen all the time, but you do have to be careful and be ready. They are on 3 tectonic plates, the Philippine plate, right here. This is our ring of fire. Remember last month in Mexico, we talked about it. There's volcanoes in Mexico. Also, all the way around here, here is our Philippine Islands. This would create a lot of volcanic activity as well in the Philippines. So, keeping track, there are statistics way back from 1454 all the way up, this one in 2011. So lots of volcanic activity at all times. There are scientists who know and who can predict what's happening. So as a rule, for volcanoes, people remain safe, but we have to be super careful about that. But it can be a pretty magnificent sight. This is just beautiful, but also very, very dangerous. So you have to be really careful when you're there. Moving on, friends, we've talked about the spice and silk trade when we talked about China, when we talked about Pakistan and Egypt. But when we talk about the spice trade, you can see this right here is the island of the Philippines. Way back as early as the 1400s, the spice trade was hitting the Philippine area and affecting the foods that they make and the things that they eat. So One really fun thing I learned about the food in the Philippines is because they have their original history, which was very Asian, and then they had the Spanish influx and influence, and then they have the influence of the United States. They have a cross between lots of different cultures of foods, and they put them together to make Filipino cuisine. Now, this pancit is made at almost all the holidays, and the long noodles are representative of longevity and good health, so you're encouraged to eat those for a better year to come. We have the Chinese spring rolls, sisig, pinakabet, and then some wonderful desserts. You'll notice here that rice is a staple there. It's really easy to grow rice in the Philippines, and so much like we have potatoes at a lot of meals, you know, in China and a lot of the Asian countries, as well as the Filipinos, rice is their staple. And of course, because they're on the sea, there's a lot of fishing, so this is fried tilapia, but a lot of seafood is in their diet. Now, in their ways of life, here is the big city. Here is the suburbs, like where we live. This is some of the fishing community. And then this is what it might look like to live on a farm. And friends, Filipinos love to dance. Tinikling is the dance with the sticks. You could try this at home if you got some sticks. You jump in and out. 2 people are holding them. 2 people or more are jumping. Maybe 1 person is jumping or 2. They have some fancy dancers, but the kids might do this for fun at home. You also have the dancing on the boards. This is pretty crazy. And you have dancing with the candles. I'm going to recommend you don't try this at home. Dancing on the boards like this is for the professionals. And dancing with candles on your hands and head, I'm going to say right now, leave that to the professionals as well. But these beautiful dancers this is culturally very Filipino. And finally, just for fun. Now, this statue over here, I told you earlier that children are very respectful to their grown-ups. This statue is in honor of the honoring gesture, and that is when the children are going down and expecting a blessing from their elders. So they would be very respectful. Mano means hands in Spanish, and so they're offering their hands for a blessing. But the really, really fun thing that we wanted to talk about is the jeepney. Oh, there's jeepneys, and they are ways that people travel. Lots of people get in and then they jam inside. And they're kind of like what we might know as a city bus. They would take them around the city for a pretty low fare. You could fit up to 20 people inside of that, and they decorate them so fun. And I know Miss Debbie's going to come along in a minute. Our craft might look a little something like this, so we're so excited to share the jeepney with you because we think it's so fun. Now it's time for Miss Debbie to come in because she wants to talk to you about some books for the Philippines.
Oh, hi kids. Thanks, Miss Kathy. Doesn't she do a great job with her part of the presentation? So I'm back with my little book talk, and I just can't stress, kids, how much you can learn about a culture just by reading the stories that were handed down from generation to generation. So my selection this week is Filipino Children's Favorite Stories, and it's in the collection. Remember, we have the great display in the front of the library that has all the books about the countries that we're talking about. So when you come in to get your packets or you call in, make sure you say, and could you put some books on the, in the drive-thru for me too, or stop by and pick up the craft, our kits and our bingo games, and stop by the book display too, okay? It's really, really a great thing, and our librarians do a great job, putting it together. So if you remember, Ms. Kathy talked about the jeepney. We just thought this was just really a fun thing. Wouldn't it be fun to ride on that bus? So our craft today is build your own jeepney. So I'm going to pull my table over next, and we'll get started, okay? Okay, we're at Miss Debbie's craft table, and we're going to be making our jeepney. So I'm going to go over what's in our craft kit first, okay? So you're going to get your little frame, and you're going to have your craft sticks, and we're going to have our wheels, and we're going to have our wheel covers, hubcaps. We are going to have our little jeepney sign. We're going to have headlights and taillights, and a little ribbon for our hanger. And then this is going to be our backdrop to our windows. Okay, so let's get going here. So, first thing we're going to do is build our body. Oh, and there'll be some glue dots in there too. I'll go over that in just a minute. So, if you have access to hot glue, and even liquid glue works pretty good too. If these don't hold up, I think they will. But I wanted to give you something so it would work out for you. Okay, so you just want to line those up with the frame. That's why I hot glued the frame together for you, so that you'd have a sturdy base for it. And then I'll put that one there. And what might work better even is to put them right on the thing here. Press them down really good. There we are. Like that. And then I want to space this one out a little bit, so I'm going to kind of just leave a little space there, and then I'm going to put this one on top of it. So it gives it a little bit of a dimension to it. Makes that kind of stick out a little bit. I kind of like that look. So I'm going to put that kind of on the bottom of that one. And then I'm going to show you how to kind of secure it so you don't have to worry. Because Scotch tape is your best friend when it comes to crafts, if you want some security in life. So here we go. I'm going to put this here and tuck it under like that, okay? And then we're going to flip it over, and we're just going to put some tape across them just to hold them together, okay? Just like that, okay. So then next up is the easy parts. You're going to put your wheels on, glue them on down. You're going to put your hubcaps on and glue them on down. You're going to put your sign. I put manila. If you want to flip it over and do something different on there, you can. We're going to glue that on there. Okay. And then we have your taillight and your hubcap, and put that on there. And then also I'm going to give you a little piece of ribbon, and you're going to tie that to the top of the sticks there. And then the last part you'll do is the picture part. Now you can see these holes are almost big enough to put like a real picture in there. So if you have some little pictures of yourself or your family or something, you can put them in your jeepney. I cut out pictures from the computer and I put them in, Miss Debbie, she loves Disney. So I did that, and then you just tape that onto the back like this. And then I'm going to give you some sparkly things, and you can decorate it up. And then you can use your markers and your crayons, and you could, do all kinds of little designs on there any way you want. So make your jeepney your own, because they're very unique buses and they're unique to the Philippines. Okay, kids, I hope you have fun building your jeepney. I'm going to turn it back over to Miss Kathy to say goodbye. See you next time. Bye-bye.
All right, friends, thank you so much for joining us for a cultural visit to the Philippines. We invite you to join us next month, Friday, November 20th, for a trip around Great Britain. I can't wait to see you. I hope you have a great day. Love you. And stop in and see us real soon. Bye.